Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be doing a little video talking about Volcanic Seraphs. Now I picked a deck out of random that I thought would be a cool deck to talk about for a little while. Of course, this deck has been playable and buildable since maybe the last few months, so it's not really like cutting edge, it's not really OCG, but it's definitely a deck which I feel has a lot of relevance in the meta, and I think if you play it correctly, it's an incredibly strong deck. Now, of course, Volcanics has been splashed into many different engines as an engine itself, into many different other decks as well. So I feel like making Volcanic Seraphs is a bit interesting because realistically the Seraph engine and the Volcanic engine don't really have much synergy, but they do have something that makes them very, very interesting and very, very special. And of course it makes me want to talk about Seraphs because I feel like, of course, they're a very strong rank 4 sort of engine, but at the same time I think people just splash it in a way where they're not really understanding what they're doing, and I think that they think that the engine just plays itself and that you can just chuck it into anything and that it does things for you. But actually, if you don't play it right and you don't build around it properly, you actually suffer a lot. So this is my profile that I've come up with, and I've been playing this for the last few days or so. I've been collecting a few replays and I'll show you those in about a couple of minutes. But of course, I just want to talk about the deck. So obviously we got the Volcanic Rockets, free Scatter Shot, free Shell. We've got 2 Magic Planters here, which is going to be sending our Blaze Accelerators, our Call the Haunted that have been used up, our Fiendish Chains. We've got the mandatory Emptiness, Warning, couple of Mirror Forces because sometimes you just need to have that back row. 2 Polar Duality to get things rolling. Of course, sometimes you just pitch it for Summoner Monk. So it's really easy. The whole deck is really, really strong. Sometimes it can be quite slow, but I feel like with stuff like Upstart Goblin is helps speed up a little bit. Now, here's a few observations I've made with this deck, and I think a few observations I've made about Star Seraphs in general. So the first observation I made is that Seraphs can't be played in everything. Now, this basically means that you can't just chuck it into something like Satellas. You need to create a deck around Seraphs that you can draw a hell of a lot, which is in this case Volcanics, and you can also get to all the pieces you need because you need to actually build the Seraph engine into your hand, like get them into your hand quickly so that you can actually do it. Because if you're waiting slowly for every piece to come along, by this point your opponent's beating you down. So you need to find a way to make the deck work for you in a way that Seraphs can come into your hand and you can actually play them quickly. So I feel like my second observation would be that you can't play the Seraph engine unless you have tons and tons of draw power. You can't play the Seraph engine without Upstart Goblin. I feel like it makes for the 7th, 8th and 9th Seraph in your engine here because you need to have 3 extra cards. You need to have 37 cards so that you can see these 6 cards quicker, and otherwise you're not going to be seeing them quick enough, and you're going to have to be relying on other cards which are much slower and are just not going to get you to what you need fast enough, because Seraphs is very, very strong, but people are saying, oh, they're going to get banned at some point and they're going to get hit, you know, don't invest into them. But I really honestly feel like the engine loses to itself a lot of the time, just like something like Dark Worlds, where they draw and you're trying to get to it and sometimes it doesn't work out. So you need to draw in it in such a way that you actually get all the pieces and that you don't overdraw so that you have too many of them, and that you don't underdraw where you start seeing Scepter on its own and you have to normal summon it and then Call the Haunted it back and it gets really, really slow, and you don't want that. So you have to play it properly. Honestly, I feel like the amount of draw in Volcanics means that you can get just the perfect amount so that you have consistent outs to everything and that you actually have all the Xyz monsters at your disposal, while being able to play a thing like this which can blow out your opponent. Because sometimes you can actually just play Volcanics, normal Volcanics, you know, sending Scatter Shot, blowing up your opponent's field multiple times every game, and then suddenly when they think you're down to very little, you just draw into your Sovereign, and then you end up just specialing and making Ouroboros or Deltaros, popping 2 cards, attacking, and it just gets you so much advantage. The engine is just fantastic. And also the last thing I want to say is that I've noticed a lot that you always want to, if you have the Seraph engine in your hand, when you open your hand, you actually want to make something with it, because you need to get the draw power off Sovereign so that the rest of your deck can work for you. Because if you don't do anything and you're waiting for your opponent to play a card so that you can get a pop off Scepter, you're actually going to put yourself too far behind, and you're actually not going to get the pluses that you would want, because it puts you at a Fiendish Chain, puts you at a Warning, puts you at Bottomless, all these random things which make Sovereign and the Scepter combo bad. So you need to make Ouroboros first turn, which is why I never really realized how important this card was, being able to give yourself a whole bunch of cards and then be able to actually just rip one out of your opponent's hand on the first turn. So they start their turn with 5 cards, and you start your field with, you have an Ouroboros and then you have 5 other cards in hand, so that's like set 3, set 4. So at that point, you've drawn into a whole bunch of traps, you've drawn into a whole bunch of shells and scatter shots, and you've drawn into other cards which you might need. And obviously it fills up everything really fast that you can draw Firestorm Guards. And obviously if you get to your Volcanics before that, you can use Firestorm Guards to draw into your Scepters and your Sovereigns really, really fast. So overall, I really enjoy the deck, and of course my extra deck is really, really random, but ultimately it's a bunch of really, really good cards. Gagaga Samurai, for example, one of the ones I'm picking out here, is actually really, really strong. I've been very surprised by how many times I've gone into it. I never realized it was as good until now. It's just like the fact that you can just kill 2 monsters, the fact that it protects your other monsters because you can use it to be a chump blocker when they attack. Stuff like that. And of course making Diamond, I love making Constellar Diamond. It's so strong against Shadows, which is one of this deck's worst matchups, because Winder completely annoys it, completely kills it unless you have Fiendish Chain. But apart from that, you're suffering a lot. So ultimately I think it's really, really strong, and I think even when we get Infinity, I think the deck is really, really strong. Maybe not as strong as Clownblade, but I think it will still be a really, really strong competitor for the meta for the foreseeable future. So with that done, let's move on to some replays and we can talk about how it plays out. Alright guys, so I got you guys 4 replays. Of course I played about 20 different games, and most of them ended up with my opponent scooping before the end of the game because they were like, oh, I can't do anything, and then they scooped out. So these ones actually like to play close to the end, to the point where I can actually show you guys a replay. So I've got Bujin's Clownblade. The Clownblade guy actually only played the deck once, but I really feel like it shows what the deck can do to some extent. And Galaxy and Raid Raptors. So the first one will be against Bujin's. Yeah, so I started off pretty slow here, and I think these kind of hands actually happen quite often. I set Vanity's Emphasis and Call the Haunted, and of course he started sending stuff real quick, and he managed to set up his Bujins. He played a card here called Jewels of the Valiant, and this card allows you to, when you banish a card from your graveyard, you can send another card from your deck to your graveyard with a different attribute. So he used that to send Malicious, and of course he's actually banished Malicious, which is going to trigger off Jewels of the Valiant, which will send himself a Bujin. So he'll be able to send Bujins really, really fast to the graveyard, because he wants to set up the turtle, set up the hare, and set up Crane in his hand and stuff like that really fast. So I did the Monk here play because I knew they didn't have a way to stop it. So I made myself a Rocket, and of course I realized I couldn't attack, so I Rhapsodied into all of to get this stuff out of the way, because I knew that I was about to set up a Scattershot play, so I had to make sure that his hare wasn't going to be in the graveyard. So I was waiting for him to overcommit here, so I knew he'd destroy this. And I knew he was going to summon something and summon a bunch of stuff, so I wanted to get as much value out of Scattershot as possible to make sure that Yamato got killed and his Malicious got killed and everything like that got killed, so that he would have to make lots and lots of adjustments to his decision trees here to actually go forward and actually win. So he manages to raid in, and I go and get a Rocket, which blocks the attack, of course, and gets myself another reload. And at this point I'm feeling pretty chuffed because I've got myself a lot of really cool, nice little draws here. Shelled back into my hand, so it puts me back at 6 cards in hand, which is really solid. Firestorm guards my way back, but of course he breakthrough skills it, which is completely fine, because I knew that if it would get stopped I could still do a lot of stuff with this hand, and I had another Firestorm guards, which is really, really sweet. So I Ragnar Zero here, but I Ragnar Zero here because back when Bujins used to be a really strong deck, Ragnar Zero was incredibly strong, and it came out in Primal Origin, and it was at the time where Bujins was at its biggest. And because obviously the Dragon format completely destroyed Bujin, and they couldn't actually be a deck at the time they came out. So when Ragnar Zero came out, Fire Fist and Bujins were actually really suffering, because this card actually, any top deck that he would draw into, he would suffer. But he actually managed to top deck into a really decent card. So goes and make Castle, which is fine, and I draw myself with a Shell in the main phase just to make sure I get some more cards. So you can see here that I'm actually building up the Sovereign and the Seraph engine, because I actually haven't dropped it yet. I actually have it in my deck waiting to draw it over and over, because I'm drawing 2 cards every turn, and I activate Shell so that I can actually pitch another one and go and get myself some more cards. I've stuck Goblin to get some more cards. I didn't draw into it, but I think I drew into it now, and of course he can't stop it. So I draw into a Sovereign. Obviously if I have a a level 4 in the field already, I can actually just Sovereign into Sovereign, draw 2 cards, and then make a rank of 4. So that's pretty good. I made sure to stop his Zephyros because I knew that he would be able to make a play here. So I Yamato, no, he Yamatos, and I stop it using Phoenix Chain and Book of Moon. It's kind of a lot of crap, you know. Vanity Emptiness gets killed, but I wanted to make sure that I could scatter shot kill his stuff. He has, and not feeling too bad at this point. So I do a lot of burn damage with this, but of course Upstart Goblin is giving him 3 life points. So usually the burn damage from scatter shot is not that important. You should not rely on the scatter shot burn to actually get you anywhere in the game whatsoever, because burn damage is never really that important. Yeah, I drew into Scepter, and of course I popped with Deltaros, and by this point he typed in the comment, "Oh my god, you sacked me so hard, why are you such a sack?" And I said, well, you know, you just draw, you gotta draw, and you get more draw power. So you draw, and you get yourself the Seraph engine, because the Seraph engine doesn't work in everything, it only works in decks that have a lot of draw power, so that you actually get a consistent engine. It's much better that way, and actually you can actually see results happening, and Deltaros is incredibly strong because you can't respond to it, so it allows you to pop stuff for free, which is really nice. So moving on to Clownblade. So yeah, I opened up much better this time. I didn't have a card to pitch for Accelerator, but I felt like the fact that I had 2 of them was really good. So he Cyclones and kills the the reload, which means that I can wait for him to overextend into Nova, summon Trick Clown, and then allows me to accelerate a reload and pop everything, because if I didn't do that, he was about to summon Infinity, which would completely have destroyed me, and there would be nothing I could have done about it. So I had to make sure I got as much value out of this as possible to put myself on evil footing. But I had the perfect outs to everything. If I didn't have the Book of Moon here, he would have been able to carry on playing like this. So I Book of Mooned his Lavar Chain to make sure I could kill it. Yeah, I felt pretty good. At this point I drew into Shell, which obviously I feel quite happy about because I have the other cards. He compulsoried it back for -1, and I go and search for another card of Rocket. And he does Lavar Chain. So he sends 1,000 Blades to the graveyard, and he pops the reload with Galaxy Cyclone. I have Summon a Monk here, and I was thinking of... I think I'm going to pitch it first with Shell first, and then I think I'm going to pitch the Raigeki for Summon a Monk. Yes, I am, yeah. So I thought I'd rather do that instead, because then I can actually do the Star Seraph play. So I've done all this Volcanic shenanigans, done loads of draw power, then set up the Seraph engine on its way so that I can actually destroy my opponent super hard. And I drew Sovereign, I summoned Sovereign, and then drew into Scepter, and then Scepter searches because it doesn't miss timing in that case. And going at myself Ouroboros, and then I completely wrecked him, and he had nothing, and I just literally just attacked. I think I put him at... I Upstart Goblin a couple of times, which I felt was a kind of a misplay, because 1,000 Blades and other cards like that could have worked. And at this point he draws into 1,000 Blades, I believe. He Upstart Goblins into 1,000 Blades, and then summons it, and he's like, I'm like, okay, warning, kill it. So I knew that at this point, if I attacked him, he would summon 1,000 Blades back, but I was so far ahead at this point that there was nothing that he could do about it. So yeah, deal with that. So I thought I'd just get extra advantage here and put myself at like 7 cards in hand, because why the hell not? I made Deltaros here, and I used it to pop one of my crappy back rows and actually get to draw a card. And he summons 1,000 Blades and I attack over it for game. So I put myself so far ahead. You can see here that he had nothing left. You know, I basically stopped everything he did, but he had a lot of different ways to gain a huge amount of advantage. But I have 2 Xyz monsters, a Firestorm Guard, and 7 cards in hand in the back row. And it was Mirror Force, so there was not really much he could do. You know, let's be honest, I completely destroyed the guy. Feel bad for him, but you know, that's how things go. So next up we've got Galaxy, and I once again opened pretty okay, because I opened up X Reload and Shell. Laval Chain here, and I send a copy of Reload because I wasn't really worried about anything, but I feel like if I have to make a play, I would try and send for Reload and get it to the graveyard as quick as possible so I can get the scatter shots out of my deck. So that'd be the best play to do. So I was quite worried about Galaxy Eye's Prime Photon Dragon, because I know by its effect, when it gets destroyed by card effects, which would be the only way I can destroy anything, it allows itself to come back in 2 turns with 8,000 attack, and that's really annoying. So I'd much rather find a way to get rid of it as soon as possible. So I Shell, and I'm going to obviously pitch it for reload, which allows me to go and get Scepter, which allows me to Sovereign, allows me to do all this lovely stuff, and lets me draw loads of cards, and lets me draw into all this stuff. So Magic Planter will go off and let me draw some more cards, put myself at 6 cards in hand, because why the hell not, because this deck draws so much. So I attack with everything, and I send Polyduality to the graveyard because I didn't want to draw into it. And so I pop and I get another draw, and I pitch 1 card out of my hand. And he knew at this point that he still had an extra standby phase before he could get his Prime Photon back. And he knew that there was nothing for Galaxy Zero that was worth it, Galaxy Soldier. He didn't really want to see what his next draw was, but he knew that I was very, very far ahead and I was going to destroy him regardless. So thanks Scepters, thanks Sovereign, thanks Seraph Engine, you did it. And the next thing is Raid Raptors. This will be our final replay. So this is interesting because I never played against Raid Raptors before, and actually watching myself play against him, even though I won this duel, it was very interesting to see how the deck works because I never actually fully understood it. So I book a Moon here because I'd much rather get another search, another draw, because I really wanted to see if I could fit some more cards before I do anything. So even though I couldn't Exceed Summon, I knew that he was putting himself to very little cards in hand. So he Swallows Nest into Tribute Lanius, which allows him to send a Mimicry Lanius, which allows him to search another Raid Raptor. So he uses that to, I thought I'd do this now. I can't remember why exactly I did it, but I wanted to make sure I got Scattershot value. And so he called the Haunters back Tribute Lanius, and he attacks Interceptor, and I was like, oh, that sucks, but okay, I don't care. So yeah, at this point I was like, I've got Rocket, so I'm good. Right, so I Magic Planter it off, do some draw power, that's cool. And I rocket and go and get myself another one from the deck. Of course, if you run out of ones in the deck, you can go and get the ones from the graveyard because it lets you do that. So he Solemn Warnings, and I set myself a whole bunch of wonderful back row. So he summons Tribute Lanius and goes and searches another goes and gets Fuzzy Lanius, which goes and gets 4 straights, which goes and searches another Raid Raptor. So he can basically redo that over and over again if he wanted to. But yeah, so I 5-Storm Guards here, and I go and get myself back my little engine here, so I can blow up more stuff. So I go and send Shell so I can get some more draw, and I think I flip and draw and draw and draw. So I knew that if I was going to start making these plays, so I needed to make sure that I could recover from it. So because I knew that he was starting to get lots of cards here, and I was quite worried. So he searches another card, Banishing Lanius, goes and gets Fuzzy Lanius, Exciton Knight, and I'm warning it because I knew that if I Fiendish Chain there was a possibility of a Forbidden Lance or something like that, but I knew that I was quite a few cards ahead, so I wasn't too worried. So I started to do some damage here. It's a very weird way that the chain forms when you use Scattershot, it's very interesting. So 5-Storm Guards again. I didn't really need to actually do this because there was nothing really worth killing. So I do some more attacks. I'd rather just put myself more cards ahead and get more back row. So I make the guy Gusto Emerald, and I go and shuffle back the Seraph Engine. And I was feeling pretty chuffed at this point because I had basically like everything I needed. It was really sweet. And Tribute Lanius goes and gets himself another card, and he basically sets himself up here. He wanted me to detach for this so that he could he can set it off for Revolution Force, and I think he ends up doing that very shortly. So I go and make Deltaros, and I use Deltaros to pop this, and I pop this, and he activates Revolution Force and goes and makes himself a Blaze Falcon, which was quite annoying, but he manages to use that to get himself another card back. So at this point though, I have to say, right, at this point he had 2 cards, he was about to draw into his next card, but I had 5 back row because I was just drawing the whole time. I had 6 cards in hand, so if he was trying to actually recover here, he lost his Exciton Knight, so he had literally no way to recover whatsoever unless he had like a way to push through everything. And Deltros was going to keep popping cards, and I was just going to keep winning. So it was so at this point I just won by sheer advantage. It was completely ridiculous. Sky Castle, why not? I go and shuffle it back in, and I knew that I couldn't do any damage, and I believe he draws and scoops it up. So as you can see at this point I was so far ahead and there was nothing that he could do about it. So yeah, so thanks for watching guys, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing this deck. I'm going to continue playing it for a little while. I'm actually going to build it in real life because I really feel like it's a cheap deck in some sense. The Seraph engine is kind of expensive if you want to pick it up, but I feel like the rest of the deck is really cheap, and of course it uses a whole bunch of rank 4s that I would hope that you already have already, and it has a lot of different good matchups in the game. Necros is an okay-ish matchup provided you side in properly. Shadows is an iffy matchup, depends on if they windy you or not, but there's a lot of other matchups that are really, really easy, and I think going into the next few months, when we get Clash of Rebellion, when we get Dimension of Chaos, in the next few months, Volcanic Seraphs will continue to be a really, really strong deck, provided that you build it properly and you play test it properly and you actually give yourself plenty of time to and lots of siding choices and everything like that. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you guys in a few days, and until next time, the Thetcglover is out.